They decided to reduce the HP of the boss, but then inflate its defense to levels that have never been seen before.
They're gonna find a way to make the game counter or fight against Miyabi.
Part of the cause of this is HP inflation.
We're tying all this back to the HP inflation.
Today, we're talking about HP inflation.
HP inflation.
HP inflation is outpacing the average of characters.
HP inflation is only a problem if you are dog shit at the game.
I, personally, struggle a lot.
If ZZZ keeps inflating the HP in response to the clears of the sweatiest players, it will lose its casual player base, which could be the end of the game.
Right now, today, our roster can still clear, but if this trend continues aggressively, it will become a problem. It's important to note that this is heavily anti-consumer. It pushes players away from pulling who they like and more towards pulling who they need. That tension exists in every gacha, but HP inflation tilts the scale even further toward meta chasing. At this point, it no longer feels like a natural balance adjustment. It just feels like raw inflation to make clears harder. Last cycle, you scraped by. This cycle, you didn't clear. Not because you built wrong, or you played poorly, or you pulled wrong, but because HP spiked. When HP inflation gets so steep that you're practically forced into specific characters just to clear it all, it stops being about matchups and starts being about mandatory pulls. That's not healthy design.
Truth be told, I feel like I'm a little bit late on this, as it seems this entire conversation around ZZZ and its in-game content is reaching a head, and feels like the community has been completely divided on multiple fronts when it comes to the topic. And every day I see more and more fighting amongst ourselves that will ultimately just lead to nowhere. So today, I would like to start over and go back to the beginning, work our way down the line, and go over everything that has happened to the game, break it all down, speak on some objective facts, and speak my own truth on the matter. Welcome to my channel. My name is Kate7th, and I'll be your host today. Chapter 1. The Dawn of a New Game. On July 4th, 2024, a heavily anticipated Hoyo game has finally hit the gacha market after almost 2 years from the first teaser back on May 13th, 2022. And due to the popularity of other Hoyo brands, such as Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, many players were eager to give this new action RPG a shot. But to say things started off great would be falling very short of the truth, as the game's launch was negatively received by many. And while there were a multitude of reasons, the one that stuck to me the most was the combat was too easy. And when you had literal clips of content creators being able to clear the in-game content while being blindfolded, it ended up creating a significant portion of the player base saying that they can just mash to win. And when the combat was such a big selling point for your brand new action RPG, that ended up not being too good of a look. So between patches 1.0 to 1.3 for the in-game content in Zenless Zone Zero, almost anything and everything was beating the game with ease. It didn't matter if people had really bad builds, their agent skills weren't leveled, or even some were using teams with little to no synergy. At the end of the day, they were still clearing the game with relative ease. But because of this, it always put ZZZ in a bad light for anyone trying up the game that wanted more of a challenge. From terms being thrown around such as baby game, this is a mash fest, or my favorite, skillless zone zero. It was pretty clear how a lot of people outside of the community really felt, to the point where even some made skits to make fun of the game even more while trying to boost up others in the space simultaneously. And I know some players in the space still haven't come to terms with this yet, but there was a little bit of truth in their words, even if a lot of it was over-exaggerated. Let me explain. From July 4th to December 17th of 2024, the game that we played back then is nothing to what we have now combat-wise. From being limited mechanically by forced QTEs on chain attacks, heavily limiting our combos, to only having one ultimate shared across the entire team, making any agent who isn't a damage dealer practically have no ultimate inside their entire kit, and in-game HP being so low that you never once had to A, interact with enemy mechanics, or B, learn how to play your team better. For a painstaking 5 months, we were locked into limited creativity in a game that didn't feel rewarding unless you were just a die-hard fan such as myself. And while patch 1.1 did help to a certain extent with creativity by adding manual chain attacks, it still felt like something was missing. So the beginning of the game was a lot of growing pains that we as a community had to overcome. However, that script would soon flip on its head shortly after, on December 18th, 2024, as in-game content would change forever. Chapter 2: The Turning Point. Saying patch 1.4 breathed life into the game would be quite an understatement, as 1.4 was truly the turning point for Zenless Zone Zero, by serving as a soft relaunch for the game to incentivize new players to give it a try and inspire old players to return. And they did this by giving out satisfactory rewards, while also giving away a free S-Rank DPS agent in Haramasa, while also releasing the most anticipated agent in the game's short history, Miyabi. But the most important thing for me was the changes to the combat. By completely overhauling the old decibel system and introducing a new in-game mode. But still to this day, some players will downplay how big of a change this actually was, so please allow me to explain. Allowing every ultimate to be used on your team is more than just a damage increase. It's more than just mere style points. It was a fundamental change to how we approach the game as a whole, as ultimates from supports such as Nicole, Sokaku, and Lucy gave more energy to your team. Ultimates from stun agents allowed for not only quicker, but more controlled timing to stun enemies. And defense agents like Caesar could finally use their ultimate and do... This completely changed teams' rotations, and it opened up a new level of skill and player expression. And by combining the decibel change with the manual chain attacks added back in 1.1, they finally gave those who wanted more everything they needed, while still making the game more fun for those on the casual side of the audience as well. So no matter what kind of player you were, this was a win for everyone. And what better way to show this newfound player expression than with a new game mode that gave you the ability to perfect your team's rotations and strategies in the new Deadly Assault. When Deadly Assault first came out, it was incredible, as getting all the premium rewards were set at a low bar, while still allowing those who wanted to push their teams to the limit. And for the first 6 months of the game mode, every single reset, we would see players from around the world discover new combos, rotations, agent techs, and synergies. Watching the community come together to perfect things while letting players who are on the casual side not have to try too hard to get all their polychrome was such an amazing sight to see. And I remember telling my good friend Leno, there's no possible way anyone could push these teams any further, and week after week having to eat my words, as they would find a way to go even further beyond. But also, during this time, Miyabi was released and was set as the new power ceiling of the game, and would remain there for...
Yi Xuan is going to be one of the only characters who can deal with this content.
Chapter 3: A Heretic Appears. The release of Miyabi in 1.4 was a weird case for many reasons, as she was by far the strongest DPS agent in the game, reaching new damage ceilings other agents couldn't even fathom. It felt like anything her sword touched just disappeared, and many players started saying nothing in ZZZ was Miyabi resistant, trivializing the content with little effort. It got to the point where if you didn't pull for Miyabi, some players in the community would laugh or shame you. And trust me, I know. She was so much stronger than anything else on her release that agents like L and Joe were constantly catching strays. And a great example of this was the infamous damage calculation that showed M0 Miyabi being better than M6 Ellen. Just keep in mind that this was pre-buff Ellen. But as the great saying goes, with great power comes great drama. And my source to that quote is, I made it the f*** up. On December 26, 2024, St. Tontas made his first video on ZZZ, and let's just say, the community wasn't, happy. God, that thumbnail is beautiful. I mean, it's a problem. It's a problem. I could sit here and go through the ongoing war between St. Tontas and the ZZZ community, but I don't get paid enough for that. Whether you hate him or love him, or whether you agree or disagree, it is an undeniable fact that the term HP inflation would become a lot more prevalent throughout the entire community after his arrival. And this would lead to some players asking questions on different platforms, such as, is Miyabi too strong? Was she actually a problem? Would Hoyoverse start expecting more players to have her and increase the in-game content accordingly, making accounts without her fall behind? It actually got to the point where brief comparisons with a character named Acheron from Honkai Star Rail were being drawn. So when the patch 1.6 drip marketing happened a couple months later, and the new agent revealed was Soldier Zero Ambi, whether you want to believe it or not, there was a mild concern to see what direction Hoyoverse would take, as they just released Astra Yao in 1.5, bringing a new level of support the game had never seen. And right after, they were now about to make the current face of the game into an S-ring DPS. Would they continue to push the agent ceiling? Or was Miyabi just a special case, being a Void Hunter? But I believe we all know what actually happened soon after. However, I still believe patches 1.5 through 1.7 are very interesting to go back and look at, because there was a common trend being set during this time. Chapter 4: The Calm Before the Storm.
Let's keep improvisations on stage, shall we?
Patches 1.5 through 1.7 was a special time for the game in my honest opinion. They made it clear no DPS was going to overtake Miyabi anytime soon, with the releases of Evelyn, Sambi, and Hugo, while also releasing more general agents for more teams at the same time, like Astra Yao, Trigger, and Vivian. And outside of a couple exceptions, no boss felt too restrictive, and it genuinely felt like player expression was at an all-time high.
Dancing the wind, song on my skin. I count like shooting star, you can never resist. Rap it, remember just my business. It might clear this in the ceiling could be a limit. I'm coming to tell you we're upside down. Suddenly we can't stay but toe down. Play yo-yo to keep me turning, spin me up. Yeah, wait, don't stop, don't stop. Got a better thing, better all mine. Made my own verse, never rewind, yeah. Shouldn't speed it up, waste my whole life, yeah. So keep your eyes on me. Keep your eyes on me.
ZZZ was in a pretty solid spot during this time. But as patch 1.7 drew closer and closer to its end, the game and its community would be put through its next big test, moving into patch 2.0. And oh boy, were we in for a ride. Chapter 5, the first anniversary. With the first anniversary for Xenozone Zero finally here in 2.0, players had a lot to look forward to. Whether it was continuing the main story, the 2.0 anniversary rewards, or getting their hands on our new Void Hunter level agent, Ishwin. Everything looked promising in the beginning, and seemed like ZZ could have a seamless 2.x version era. However, even with all this, the talk about HP inflation in the game's future didn't die down. In fact, it grew. But if we were to go and reference these charts here, we can see at the beginning of 2.0, it was not inflation, but rather HP deflation for both Shield Defense and Deadly Assault. Shout out to my friend Fish, by the way. He made all of these charts for me, and I greatly appreciate it. Link to his spreadsheet in the description below. But HP is not the only thing being brought up this time as well. As with the introduction of Ishwin, we now had access to a brand new class called Rupture. And following the introduction of Rupture came a new enemy mechanic called Miasma. And while yes, this mechanic was designed with Rupture in mind, it still felt fair. And that's because you did not need Rupture agents at all to deal with it, as defensive assist, dodge counters, and ultimates would all reduce the shield. And because ultimates were so effective against it in general, it made agents like Seth and Caesar's ultimate finally have a good use case, as in almost every other scenario, using their ultimate was a waste of time. And then furtherly, you were greatly rewarded for breaking the shield, as upon breaking a Miasma shield and Shield Defense, the boss would immediately lose 15% of their max HP, effectively meaning you only had to do around 85% of the total HP to defeat them. And for Deadly Assault bosses, when you break their Miasma, you do around 2.5% of their total HP. But just remember that Deadly Assault bosses have way more health than Shiyu, so 2.5% is still a lot. And on top of all of this, your entire team will gain 80 energy as well, allowing you to immediately capitalize after the shield break. So Miasma so far has not been an issue, and it is nowhere near as restrictive as some might have thought it would be. But that's not all the anniversary patch gave us, as we also got our first ever agent to get buffed in Ellen Joe. And I bring this up to not really discuss Ellen's changes specifically, but more so what this buff meant for the future of the game as a whole, as this buff is what led players to believe that if older agents start to underperform, the ZZZ devs will be able to breathe life into them once again. But even after this, some believe this may have just been a one-time thing and would never happen again. A fluke, you may say. But now with the Soldier Zero ambi buffs coming in the future, we now know that Ellen's buff was no mere fluke, and they will continue to do this when they deem necessary. But overall, throughout all patch 2.0, the endgame still felt fair, balanced, and not that big of an issue. That is, until we get to the next chapter of this story. Chapter 6. The Shill era begins. The talk around HP inflation really hit its peak recently with the arrival of the new Deadly Assault boss, Defiler. God damn, she thick, what the fuck? As this was by far the most public outrage I have ever seen from the community before. And a lot of players will say that HP inflation needs to stop. And to that, I actually have to disagree, as I believe that statement isn't strong enough. So rather saying HP inflation needs to stop, we should be saying agent shilling needs to stop, or at least not be as egregious. But some of you may ask, what does shilling mean? Well, lucky for you, my good friend Nix has a great definition for this. Shilling is when something is inherently designed to push a specific character or archetype to perform in their best possible conditions, and in some cases, even overperform. And this is why I can't stress enough that the real issue is far more than just an HP problem. And in fact, if it was truly just HP only, then you as a player would not feel it nearly as bad. And to properly explain myself and point of view, we're going to have to go back to 1.4 really quick, when the first signs were being shown to us. Back in 1.4, when Miyabi released, there was a new boss, Bringer, added alongside her. And Bringer was by far the perfect Miyabi boss. From the buffs he gave, the hand phase taking great anomaly damage, and being much more susceptible to freeze than other bosses, as he was able to be frozen for longer periods of time. Everything about Bringer screamed Miyabi. And if you are a longtime viewer of my channel, you know that I have had the honor to be able to help countless of players for the past year, helping them all to improve their in-game results. And I can confidently say that even back in 1.4, I saw people struggling, and it was almost always against Bringer. Anytime I would try to help someone struggling with Bringer, there was almost always a common factor in place. They didn't have Miyabi. And this could have been they were just taking a break from the game at that time. They also could have started the game after 1.4, or the one that shocks everyone till this day. Maybe they just didn't like her. But at the end of the day, not everybody was able to have her on their account for different reasons. So making bosses that shield new agents has been a thing since the beginning, and truth be told, there is nothing wrong with that to a certain extent, as it makes sense that a company like Hoyoverse would want to sell the new agents on banner. But where it starts to become a problem is when the bosses are so tailor-made to the new agents that playing other team archetypes into that boss feels horrible. It's perfectly fine for different archetypes to thrive against specific bosses, but other archetypes should still be able to enter that fight with a fair challenge. And this is where we now go back to patch 2.1 and the arrival of Yuzuha. Yuzuha was the next big support added to Zenless Zone Zero, joining Astriel at the top of the tier list, being an incredible anomaly support while also giving general buffs as well. But with Yuzuha's arrival came a change, as all Deadly Assault bosses will receive a 10% anomaly build-up resistance. Now this isn't the first time they have done this, as back in 1.4, Pompeii specifically also had his anomaly build-up increased. But the reason it felt even worse in 2.1 is because of how it changed team rotations. All bosses needed 10% more build-up, while the agent that increased anomaly build-up for the team just so happened to be on banner. And on top of this, specific Deadly Assault bosses such as Miasma Fiend and Defiler have an additional anomaly build-up multiplier added to them. This was such a significant change that months ago a friend named Shiro reached out to me on Discord, and he truly showed me how this affected his teams. And for those of you who don't know Shiro, he is a very good player. But there was many cases now, without Yuzuha on the team, old rotations just didn't work anymore, or in some cases, agents would have to change their gearing requirements. Two great examples of this is Miyabi and Yanagi. Since their release, attack percent on slot 6 was better than anomaly mastery for them, because they both had enough build-up at a baseline that it didn't affect their rotations, making anomaly mastery not needed. But now fast forward to today, and if you watch any high-scoring DA clear using Miyabi or Yanagi, they will both pretty much almost always have anomaly mastery on the 6th slot now. So the release of Yuzuha made a lot of players have to adapt, due to the universal anomaly crease. And this was Hoyoverse's way of shilling for Yuzuha, making her feel much better of a pull than she already was. But now fast forward to today with the release of Seed and the new Defiler boss. We are now seeing even more things added to the in-game to make certain archetypes shine. In the case of Defiler, not only is there already an additional anomaly build-up increase, but there is also a debuff that makes anomaly deal 25% less damage. And to really top things off, some players are saying that Hoyoverse is trying to slow Miyabi down, as they are adding more and more bosses that are starting to either A, resist ice, B, be unfreezable, or C, both. But doing this has caused an unfortunate downside where other ice agents such as Ellen, Joe, and Hugo are now caught in the crossfire. So it seems to many players that Hoyoverse wants to create more bosses that really caters towards a specific archetype. But if you remember what I said earlier, at a base, there's nothing wrong with this. And it only truly becomes a problem when other archetypes feel they don't have a fighting chance anymore. And while I believe that we haven't gone that far yet, it is valid to have this concern for the future if they don't slow down. So this is much more than just an HP increase. It really is all the following combined: HP, extra modifiers, debuffs, resistances, and in-game buffs, all at the same time. But next time you hear any conversation around HP inflation, I want you to all understand that this is much more than just HP, and it is a multitude of factors all working together, making more issues that could potentially lead us to dangerous roads in the future. Chapter 7. My message to the community. Recently, I have noticed that there are those among us that believe anyone who speaks up on this topic is just trying to spread ill will. But I believe they may just be a little bit confused. So I thought it was a great time today to spread this message to you all, so everyone can be on the same page. First things first, constructive criticism is not toxic. Being positive isn't always good, just like negativity isn't always bad. Being able to critique the things you care for is healthy, and it can be the catalyst that prevents complacency. Because once you become complacent, it becomes very difficult to try and change. And I, for one, do not wish that for this game's future. I speak up because I love. I speak up because I care. I speak up for a community that should want the best for their game moving forward. But if you still don't understand, let me put it to you simply. Someone speaking with passion does not equate to hate. Had we not spoken up about endgame variety, would there even be a deadly assault? Had we not spoken up about Hollow Zero, would there even be a Lost Void? Had we not spoken up about older agents, would Ellen Jill have even been buffed? Change happens because of our actions. So long as criticism is done constructively and not dismissively, and good decisions are elevated and highlighted for the good that they bring, then the game can continue to improve. So all I ask is the next time you see or hear someone discussing the game's future, please listen with intent and understand if they are only trying to bring the game down, or if they are someone who truly cares and their passion is just slipping out at the moment. And please never forget, united we stand, divided we fall. And if we are to trip one too many times, it could be game over for us all. Villain Zone Zero is a special game for me, as it is a game that I genuinely love. But it is also the game that made me give YouTube another chance. And I would not be on this platform right now connecting with so many of you every single day if it was not for ZZZ. And considering how much YouTube has changed my life over the past year, I will always feel a little bit indebted to it. But I promise from here on, if things need to be said, I will say them. And if there's something that needs to be praised, I will praise them. As I believe it will be healthy for us all to acknowledge the good and the bad. That way we can continue to give honest feedback to the developers. Because I want nothing more than this game to thrive for as long as it can and keep that fire burning. Thank you all for your support. Thank you all for believing in me. And thank you for watching this video. And most importantly, thank you to Shin, my trusted editor, as I know he had so much fun editing this one. But don't forget to join the Discord as I do weekly giveaways there. Check me out on X at Kenta7th. I promise I'll start posting more often there. And do me a favor and share this video with your friends so we can help spread the message. And be sure to subscribe for more Zenless Zone Zero content. And may the future bless us all with a game that we can continue to support and love. But as always, my name is Kenta7th, and with that, I'm signing out.